ਜੌਨਸਨ ਐਂਡ ਜੌਨਸਨ ਤੋਂ ਖਰੀਦੀਆਂ 10 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਡੋਜ਼ਾਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਡੋਨੇਟ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਜਾਣਗੀਆਂ। ਪ੍ਰੀਕਿਉਰਮੈਂਟ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਅਨੀਤਾ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਡੋਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਵੈਕਸੀਨ ਸ਼ੇਅਰਿੰਗ ਅਲਾਇੰਸ ਕੋਵੈਕਸ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ। ਉਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਆਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਕਈ ਦੇਸ਼ ਹਜੇ ਵੀ ਅਜਿਹੇ ਹਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੈਕਸੀਨ ਦੀ ਘਾਟ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਾਫੀ ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ।
Today, I will provide a brief update on the Government of Canada's vaccine procurement efforts. From the beginning of this pandemic, our government has committed to protecting the health and safety of Canadians by securing access to safe and effective vaccines. As a result of our diverse portfolio of vaccines and our contracts with Pfizer and Moderna specifically, as of July 27th, Canada has received more than 66 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. This means that the supply is here for every single eligible person in Canada to be fully vaccinated. This milestone was reached a full 2 months ahead of the original goal of the end of September, and it is a direct result of our aggressive and proactive procurement approach focused on capitalizing on a diverse portfolio of vaccines. Au 27 juillet, le Canada avait reçu plus de 66 millions de doses de vaccins contre le COVID-19. Cela signifie que chaque personne admissible au Canada peut être entièrement vaccinée. Ce jalon a été atteint 2 mois avant l'objectif initial de la fin septembre, et c'est le résultat direct de notre approche d'approvisionnement agressive et proactive axée sur la création d'un portefeuille de vaccins diversifiés. Far from lagging behind, Canada has been leading the G20 for months when it comes to the percentage of our population with at least one dose, and has led for second doses since the end of July. As of today, we have received over 70 million doses in the country.
ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਆਗੂ ਐਰੀਨੋ ਟੂਲ ਤੇ ਐਨਡੀਪੀ ਆਗੂ ਜਗਮੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਪੂਰੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਕੋਨੇ ਤੋਂ ਦੂਜੇ ਕੋਨੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਭੱਜ ਨੱਠ ਕਰਦੇ ਵੇਖੇ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਨ। ਉਹ ਟੂਲ ਘੱਟੋ ਘੱਟ 7 ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਏਜੰਡੇ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰ ਕਰ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹਨ। ਇਸ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਜਗਮੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਐਨਡੀਪੀ ਦੇ ਏਜੰਡੇ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਸਾਰਾ ਜ਼ੋਰ ਰੋਜ਼ਗਾਰ, ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ ਤੇ ਵਾਤਾਵਰਣ ਉੱਤੇ ਤਰਜੀਹੀ ਤੌਰ ਉੱਤੇ ਲਗਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਵਾਅਦਾ ਕੀਤਾ।
We've been dealing with a pandemic which has been really difficult. It's been hard on a lot of people. And while Justin Trudeau wants to just act like it's over, it's not over. And people are still worried. I want to thank everyone who's gotten vaccinated. That's a big step forward for us to be able to get past this pandemic. But people are still worried. They're worried about their kids. Today, the plan was just announced about the province's plan for kids getting back to school. I know people are worried about their kids. People are worried about their elders and a potential flu season. People are worried. And they're still concerned about what this pandemic means for them, their jobs, and their future. And if Justin Trudeau was listening to people and their concerns and their worries, he would not be holding a selfish summer election. Instead, he would be heeding our call and the call of Canadians to keep on delivering the help that people need, fighting for the help that Canadians need at this point in time. But while we've been dealing with the pandemic and the crisis of the pandemic, there are so many other crises that continue to impact Canadians, people here in Newfoundland and Labrador. I should also mention it's a great honor to be back in my childhood town, the town that I grew up in when I was a kid, spent a lot of time in my formative years. Someone mentioned maybe that's the reason why I've been able to connect with people, is because I learned from the greatest connectors, the people who have got great hospitality and warmth, when I learned that here in St. John's. But while we've been dealing with the pandemic, we know there's a number of crises that are still in front of us. We know that the climate crisis is raging, and people are feeling the impacts of that crisis right now. We've seen forest fires in the interior of BC and in Ontario. I spent some time in the interior and saw thick clouds of smoke that obscured the sky. You couldn't see the sun. People were struggling to breathe the air. We know that that impacts people across the world with forest fires raging around the world. We also know of flooding and intense periods of drought and heat. Climate crisis is real.
ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਥਿਤ ਤੌਰ ਉੱਤੇ ਡੈਲਟਾ ਵੇਰੀਐਂਟ ਕਾਰਨ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫਿਰ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਕੇਸਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਧਾ ਦਰਜ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਮੱਦੇਨਜ਼ਰ ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਦੇ ਸਬੰਧ ਵਿੱਚ ਖਰਚਣ ਲਈ $2.2 ਬਿਲੀਅਨ ਹੋਰ ਰੱਖੇ ਗਏ ਹਨ। ਨਵੇਂ ਮਾਮਲਿਆਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਅੱਧੇ 20 ਤੋਂ 39 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦਰਮਿਆਨ ਹਨ। ਜੂਨ ਦੇ ਮੱਧ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਇਹ ਕੇਸਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਹੈ।
We've had recessions before, but never have we had such a sudden and substantive contraction in our economy and the economic activity as we have faced through this COVID-19 pandemic. We've battled new viruses before, but not in living memory have we had to mobilize our entire healthcare system so rapidly in response to this global pandemic, and maintain that response for as long as new variants of concern drive resurging waves of the virus. We've supported people and job creators through tough economic times before, but never have we had to muster the fiscal firepower among all levels of government the way we've had to do over the last 18 months. Despite the uncertainty, Ontario has persisted in our commitment to plan responsibly, along with continuing our regular, transparent updates to those plans based on the best information available at the time. And so we are here again today with another update. Malgré l'incertitude, nous avons maintenu notre engagement de planifier de façon responsable et nous avons mis à jour ces plans régulièrement et de façon transparente en tenant compte des meilleurs renseignements que nous avons à ce moment. Et nous voici aujourd'hui avec une autre mise à jour. Before getting to the numbers, I'll take a moment to recap Ontario's prudent approach to pandemic budgeting. Since day one, the government's response to COVID-19 has been supported by Ontario's Action Plan, a flexible and clear framework to protect people and jobs. This was important for two reasons. First, this approach ensured transparency and accountability even amidst the significant economic uncertainty caused by the pandemic. As I've already highlighted, our government was elected to restore accountability and trust in public finances.
ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਗ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਰ ਬਰਕਰਾਰ ਹੈ। ਫਾਇਰ ਫਾਈਟਰਸ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਹਾਲਾਂਕਿ ਜੰਗਲ ਦੀ ਅੱਗ ਬੁਝਾਉਣ ਲਈ ਅਣਥੱਕ ਮਿਹਨਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਅੱਗ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਰ ਰੁਕਣ ਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈ ਰਿਹਾ। ਅੱਗ ਦਿਨੋਂ ਦਿਨ ਵੱਧਦੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਕਾਰਨ ਫਾਇਰ ਫਾਈਟਰਸ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਆਲੋਚਨਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ।
Reporting. Down here, we call this our anchor. We have crews working up the entire west side here towards Monty Lake. Today, they will be doing the planned ignitions.
Seeing the resources, fighting that fire as it began to grow and it expanded in all directions.
So when I hear that not enough is being done, that hits me in the heart, right? And it not only hits me, it hits every firefighter out on the ground. That's the hardest thing to hear.
Really relates to the government looking people in the eyes and saying that every available resource has been accessed and is being used, when that is clearly not happening.
And Commander,
the resource shortage that's out there nationwide and in North America, let alone around the world, is, we all know and understand what's out there.
Combustible lawn furniture, even a doormat can take out a house if it's allowed to burn.
ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੀ ਵਿਸ਼ੇਸ਼ ਫੋਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਅਫਗਾਨਿਸਤਾਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਾਇਨਾਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਕਾਬੁਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦਾ ਦੂਤ ਘਰ ਬੰਦ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾਣ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਕਰਮਚਾਰੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਸੁਰੱਖਿਅਤ ਕੱਢਿਆ ਜਾ ਸਕੇ। ਯੋਜਨਾ ਦੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਰੱਖਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਇੱਕ ਸੂਤਰ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਦੱਸੀ। ਉਹ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਮਾਮਲੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਨਤਕ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਬੋਲਣ ਦਾ ਅਧਿਕਾਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, ਨੇ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਕਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਵਿਸ਼ੇਸ਼ ਫੋਰਸਾਂ ਭੇਜੀਆਂ ਜਾਣਗੀਆਂ।
250,000 strong, and Canadians spent years there, Americans even more so, along with their British compatriots. If you take away the final element of international support from soldiers and air power, then the Afghan soldiers might well lose hope. And I suspect and submit that's exactly what's happened, which has destroyed their will to resist. And there's been several waves over the last 20 to 30 years of what happens when elements such as the Talib, who are not by any means one group that's similar in thought and procedure, but rather a collection that crosses tribal boundaries. And so there's no chain of command. There's no respect for the rule of law. And what they're probably going to do to those who helped NATO forces or those who aspired as women to become parliamentarians or doctors or soldiers is probably going to be unbelievable intelligence. But if the Americans are doing it, that's a pretty good sign that we should probably consider doing something similar. Getting some out doesn't mean all. And let's not forget, there's still thousands, perhaps, of local Afghans who have worked hard alongside the Canadian forces. And it's our hope as veterans and that they'll be somehow brought out, or a certain number of them. So you've got to have some elements there who can process them. But I think he's made a mistake. And I think the gradual reduction of especially American personnel, down from a height of around 100,000 to what was 5,000 up until a couple of months ago. If they could have kept it at 5,000, that would have continued to give hope and certain capabilities to the Afghan forces, and we almost certainly wouldn't be in this position. So a reconsideration is possible. Is he going to do it? I don't know, but I have an additional comment on that. That it's not popular. He's right. I spent quite a lot of time down in the United States as part of the NAFTA discussions, and when I was a parliamentarian, and even more so when I was a soldier. And the Americans have a sense that their allies, their friends, have, in the main, abandoned them to do most of the heavy lifting, as they've done historically. Canada pulled out of there in terms of the combat mission. We stopped doing the combat operations in 2010.